welcome to Vegetology. Today we are going to be making some gorgeous recipes, all designed for festive feasting. So the first one that we're going to do is a butternut squash Wellington. We're going to make a stuffing mix, stuff it into our butternut squash that's going to be roasted, tie it up like a parcel and pop it back in, and it's going to be an amazing centerpiece. So to start with, I've got a butternut squash, I've got a bulb of garlic, and I've got some thyme. Now, I've already cut my butternut squash in half. They can be quite tricky to cut in half, and so I thought I would do that before we started filming. So I've got my butternut squash cut in half, and I'm just going to scrape out the seeds. If the seeds, when you're doing it, don't want to come out very easily, you can just do this after it's been roasted, and that's no problem. But we'll just get these seeds out. They actually come out a lot easier if you take them out after roasting. But we'll get the majority of them out for now. Okay, and then I've also got, it's about 4 or 5 sprigs of thyme, and we're going to roast this with our thyme laid on top, and we're going to pop a couple of garlic cloves on there as well. I'm not going to bother to peel my garlic cloves because I'm going to squeeze out that delicious roasted garlic once it's come out the oven. Okay. So we've got the majority of our seeds out there. That's fine. I'm just going to take the thyme and just lay it, or you can lay it in there. And again, with my garlic, all I'm going to do is crack it open, and I'm going to pop a couple of cloves in each of the holes where the seeds normally are. Okay. So I've got some olive oil here, and all I'm going to do is just going to take a generous amount of olive oil. You might want to just pull off your thyme sprigs here, and just make sure you cover the surface area of your butternut squash, and we're going to do this on the other side as well. So I've got my thyme sprigs on there. I'm just going to place it onto a baking tray. Now we're actually going to go skin side down, because we want to protect the outside of the butternut squash so that we can take the flesh out of it a bit later and keep the skin intact. So all over with your olive oil. Just going to pop it down there and season it. A little bit of salt and pepper. So my oven is preheated to 170. So this is going to go in for 45 minutes. Then when we take it out, I'm going to leave it to rest for about 10 minutes before I scoop out the flesh, leaving a little rim, because obviously we want to keep the skin intact. So let's pop this in the oven. So whilst our butternut squash is roasting in the oven, we're going to put together the stuffing mix. So I've recently been using this. It's a vegan sausage mix. It's the best one I've found on the market. This one is by Zuma. You can order it online direct from their website, and I'm going to add in 100 grams. I'm going to put 100 grams of the sausage mix in. Ooh, just come up in my face. And then to that, I'm going to add 75 millilitres of water. I want to make a paste. Just get this 75 in. There we go. I'm going to give it a little mix, and then I'll show you this. So you want it to look like sausage meat, okay? You can see it's starting to come together here. And that is exactly the consistency that we're looking for, okay? So I'll take away my scales, and then we're going to start adding all the goodness in. So I have got here 25 grams of cranberries, and I've got about 40 grams of toasted flaked almonds. And I want to chop these up a little bit, and I'm just going to use this little seesaw knife. I think it's actually called a herb knife. I was brought it as a gift, but I love it. It did come with a board as well that had a groove in it. I don't know where that is now. But we're just going to give them a little chop up. You don't want them to be too chunky. You want all the flavours to marry together. Okay, I'm going to pop that straight into my sausage mix. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to add in is we're actually going to add in some of these dried onions. So I've brought these already dried, so they're actually called crispy onions. They just add quite a lot of texture, crunch, and a really nice flavour. So I've got 20 grams of dried onions going in there. Then I've got 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. So I just tend to buy whole nutmeg and then grate it in. You do have to watch your fingers when you're using these because they're not very big and you don't want to catch your finger on the grater. It's not a nice scenario. So when you think you've got about 1/4 teaspoon going in there, you can put that to the side. I've then got 1/2 teaspoon, lost my teaspoon, of paprika. It's smoked paprika, this one, but you can use normal paprika if you want to. Okay, so I've got about 1/2 teaspoon of smoked paprika. Now I've got about 1/4 teaspoon of crushed chilies. If you really like the heat, you can add more, but if you're doing this for a crowd, I'd probably put a little bit less in case everyone doesn't like the heat. I've got a zest of an orange. When you're zesting, just make sure you only take the very top zesty layer. If you go too deep when you're zesting, then it just tastes bitter. So just the very top layer when you're zesting. I love the smell of orange. Okay, make sure you get all of that in. We're going to add a bit of sage. So I've got here some sage leaves that I'll just take off their stems. And again, using that same herb cutting knife, I'm just going to chop these up. I mean, you can do it with a normal knife, but my knife skills aren't amazing, so this is much easier. Oh, as soon as you start to cut sage, it gives out this amazing smell. Okay, and then straight in to your mix. We're going to add in as well about 1/2 teaspoon of whole grain mustard. Pop that in there. Okay, so this is everything that's going in our stuffing mix. Give this a really good mix together. We are going to be adding in the flesh of the butternut squash once that's out and cooled a little bit, but you need to make sure all of this is really well incorporated. Oh, it smells so nice. Okay, so don't want to waste any. I've got my mix here. This is going to go into the fridge while my butternut squash carries on roasting, and then when the squash is out and a little bit cooled, we'll add the flesh from the squash into here and we'll go on to the next stage. Okay, so our butternut squash has come out of the oven and this has been resting for about 15 minutes, okay? So I can actually touch it now and turn it over. And I can see here all my garlic's all really squidgy, so I'm going to squeeze that out in a minute. I've got my thyme. I'm just going to take that off the sprigs and keep it in there because we're going to use all of this goodness. So I'm going to get a spoon that I could see just before. There it is. And we're going to scoop out the flesh. So you want to leave about a centimetre border because it's still got to be able to retain its shape. So just start by gently scooping it out and you can add it directly into your stuffing mix. Okay? So take out the centre. You're going to do this to both butternut squashes. Okay, so I've scooped the flesh out now and I've left a little border all the way around. I've added it straight in to my stuffing mix, and as well as mixing that in, those garlic cloves you put on top, that is now just deliciously, look at that, roasted garlic. and you can just squeeze them out. I mean, that is heaven on a plate. It's not on a plate, it's in a bowl, but it's delicious. So just squeeze out those garlic cloves straight into your mix. And roasted garlic adds quite a depth of flavour. It's really, really delicious. So mix it all together. Okay, so you'll probably have more stuffing here than you're going to need. You could make stuffing balls and roast them in the oven. You could freeze it for another time. But don't throw it away. Don't waste it because it's too good. So I've got that all mixed in nicely. And what we're going to do is we're going to assemble our butternut squash into a Wellington. So just move that board aside. I've got some string. I'm going to lay my string down. I'm not going to bother to get a new baking tray. That's just more washing up. And I'm going to lay 3 pieces of string down the tray underneath the butternut squash. Okay, I'm going to lay one of my butternut squash on top. I've got about 50 grams of kale here that I've just washed. I'm going to pop a little bit of it. Make sure you're not putting stalks in. A little bit in the bottom there. Okay, and do this to both sides. So just de-stalk your kale and pop it in. This looks really good when it's sliced and cut open. It looks amazing. You've got the green, you've got all the colours, stuffing, and then you've got the cake of the orange of the butternut squash. So it looks really good. Okay, so I've got kale on both sides. Take some of your stuffing mix. My hands are clean, as in they've only been handling this recipe. So I'm just going to put it in with my hands and just press it. So you've got those cranberries, those flaked toasted almonds, you've got herbs, you've got the vegan sausage mix, you've got spices. It's just everything going on here. It's like a party on the plate. So this is why it makes for such a great centerpiece as well. You'll see when we tie it up with string that you can lay this in the middle of your table and it just looks brilliant. Okay, so I've really packed both sides. Now, if you think you can fit in a bit more kale, so you've got another line of green when you cut into it, in there, do. Is it going to go on top, the other one? Let's see. So I have both my sides here. I'm going to get the other side of my butternut squash and pop it straight on top. Okay, take your string and tie it on. I do 2 little knots. Make sure it's secure and together. And then we're going to roast this in the oven for about another, if you've got any bits that are still on the tray, just push them in the sides. Or if you want to add a bit more meat in, sausage, like vegan sausage meat, or your stuffing mix, pop it in at the sides. Okay, so we've got that all there. I'm going to pop this back in my oven, which is at 170 for about another hour. Okay, so I'll meet you back here when it comes out. Okay, so our butternut squash roasted in the oven for about an hour. I've taken it out and I've let it rest for about 20 minutes. I've let it rest because I want it to set up a little bit on the inside. It'll still be piping hot. I'm just going to take my string off. The third one looks like it's come down there. I'm just going to wiggle that string out because obviously I don't want to serve anybody a piece of string. Okay, so here we've got the butternut squash. And I'm going to take off that very end bit because that's the stalky bit. And then I'll cut a couple of chunks so you can see this from the inside. Got a little serving there. And there we go, our stuffed butternut squash. So let's go a little bit further in so you can see some more. Oh, it smells amazing. If you serve this alongside the vegan dauphinoise potatoes and a little bit of that whole baked cauliflower, Honestly, if you are vegan yourself or cooking for other vegans, they are going to be so impressed. I mean, look at that. It just smells like Christmas, to be honest, to me. Christmas, a festive feast. That is absolutely gorgeous. So I hope you enjoy trying this. And if you do, we'd love to know. But yeah, that is our vegan butternut squash Wellington.